when you don't make decisions, right, it leads to inaction. And sometimes inaction's okay. I mean, we have the temperament of like, okay, hey, let's do. And sometimes you just the be. If you be inactive for too long, then when you have to be active, you're not ready. There's decisions that come, and I know for you too, at my feet all the time. If I had, when I was younger, just been like inactive and just pushed the decisions off, then I would have never learned how to make decisions. Hey there, welcome back to the CA Podcast. I'm Chad, and I'm sitting here with, what did you do with Lance?
There's been a makeover.
I'd say.
So I last left you guys in November. I decided time for a haircut.
Yep.
I grew back the hair.
I know.
Grew back some facial hair.
Got a little bit of some kind
got
of
a tan. Been working in Florida for the last
This is Florida
10,
Lance.
11.
I've never met Florida Lance.
Yeah, I even brought the collared, button-down shirt. It's a new improved 23 Lance.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I had to do that. We're in a new set.
100%. So this is your first episode. This is your first filming since really November.
Yes.
In that sense.
This is the maiden voyage. We,
crazy.
Should have popped the Celsius and sat back, but it's been a ride.
Yeah.
Been super excited to get back.
Yeah.
And,
how does it feel to come into something that like you left and it's like completely different now? Like how does that feel?
There's a lot of emotions in the sense of like, I knew this is what we needed as a team ministry. It's excited to see what all you guys, Brian, Vinny, yourself, even Amber, like everybody has been able to accomplish when you just kind of let people try things.
Yeah.
And what happens in that is you don't know someone's ability until you're faced with adversity. So, this wall has a lot of stories,
100%.
This foam / hexagon.
Yeah.
And I was trying to tell Vinny's like, I'm going to do this 3D CAD. And I said, what looks on paper never goes. I always want to like punch an engineer because I can take a line.
Oh, yeah.
And that wall might be 3 feet wide and they have no room for things. Or it could be too skinny. You don't have enough to put in there. But in that, we're watching the football game.
Yeah.
What was it, a week ago?
Yeah. So,
and watching that last play.
Brutal.
With now I've already forgot the guy's name.
Joseph O.C.
Yeah, Joseph O.C.
Yep.
And he's playing good.
Yep.
He's contributing.
Yep.
And you're always trying to force a fumble. You're trying, even if you haven't played football at a high school level, even when you're playing it with your bros, you want that play.
100%.
But what do you do when you've overextended yourself? And now you don't just cause a situation, you put them in field goal position. And so we don't want to bore anybody that doesn't watch sports, but basically one play causes the whole team to be able to be in field goal position. They kick the field goal, they win. And now you see him sitting on the sidelines realizing, I over pursued.
Yeah, he had all the right intentions.
He's 1 foot.
Yeah,
1 foot difference. If he's 1 foot inside, he's trying to stop Mahomes. 1 foot outside, now it's called roughing the passer, and you just can't touch
and
the
thing
golden
is,
children.
And the problem is like it was when he was going out of bounds, and so it was after the play.
Right.
He had pursued. He actually forced him out because of his pursuit. So in all reality, it was a good play. It was what happened after the play.
And so there's so much
to unpack on that
because like we've all been part of something where the emotions take over.
100%.
We say something we shouldn't. We go a little farther than we should. Does he shove Mahomes because he's just irritated? Was he trying to knock him down to force a fumble?
Momentum.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about stopping the momentum because you can always tuck and roll.
Sure.
But we're talking about nanoseconds.
It was a lapse of judgment. Is ultimately.
But I don't know if it's a lapse of judgment because when you're in those seconds, you're literally trying to tell somebody.
Well, here's the funny thing, right? One of his teammates in particular thought it was a lapse of judgment. And I'm saying what I'm saying on this is it's everyone else's perspective defines your moment.
Right.
So it may not have been a lapse of judgment.
Right.
But people around him felt like it was. And so I think that's the other side that we're talking about it too, is like your intentions may have been great in the moment, and when you fail, now you're defined by people's perspective.
Oh,
now you're
100%.
defined by everyone else's view.
Right.
Because how many hours of sports talk? I mean, probably hundreds now have been spent on talking about that.
And I'm glad you brought that up because we're doing it even in our own like perspective of we're talking about a play. It's easy to say, well, I would have done this.
Yeah.
99% of everybody that's talking about this play has never even put on pads to play the game at any professional level.
And he was so broken up. You can see him crying on the sideline. And then a video caught as they're walking to the locker room, there was a veteran that was basically yelling at him saying, "Why would you do that? This is my last game."
Right.
And basically saying, like, because he's going to retire. And hey, this is it. Like, you ruined everything for me. Like, why'd you touch the quarterback? Why'd you do that? And so, like, you look at that, and then another dynamic is, when he goes to do the post-game interview, another teammate sat with him and basically guarded him from even talking about the play and kind of shielded him from reporters. So you see at that moment two different sides, two different perspectives. One teammate was absolutely livid, not saying the other teammate wasn't, but that teammate still stuck up for his teammate.
Right.
And so what you saw too is a disengage. One guy, he's not going to be on the team next year. The other guy was. And he's going to be on the team. So it's like he's sticking up for his boy, his brother. And so it's kind of interesting to see, like, you'll always have, when you fail, you'll immediately know who's in your corner and who's not.
Right.
Immediately.
Right.
Because in that moment, he knew who was in his corner and who wasn't.
Well,
I mean,
it gets even harder in that because some people are in your corner.
Yeah.
But when their success or their failure,
right,
they may amplify their emotions because we're emotional beings.
Yeah.
And this whole topic is more or less like, what do you do? Because the camera, the control board, and you would know this best. Yeah. It had to have been difficult because they wanted to keep the camera on him
100%.
The whole time. They're watching the emotions.
Yeah.
He puts the helmet on.
Yeah.
He's trying to hide his emotions. I mean, he put the chin strap around his face. You know he's crying because you can see there's players consoling him.
Yeah.
And the first thing that just dropped in my spirit is, what do you do? The next couple of hours, there's people around you.
Yeah.
What do you do when you go home?
Yeah.
And isolation sets in, and it's just the voices, and then you're replaying the horrors.
100%.
And you have, so many people in this life wanting to go somewhere.
Right.
But there's this fear of what happens when I have failed.
Yeah.
Too much.
Oh yeah. I mean, and we see this all the time in sports, but this was such like a polarizing moment where you had the teams almost were at a stalemate.
Right.
It was almost like they were at a point. It was going to go to overtime. It was going to go into sudden death. And in this moment now defines the whole game. And like you said, he was playing good. Everyone had done their job up to that point, and just one small, minute mistake ruined everything.
Right.
It doesn't even matter how they played now. It doesn't matter how this went. It's that one play that everybody's talking about.
And I would unpack it on so many levels. Like I think about people that have stepped out trusting, like, okay, so do I make this big move? Do I not go to school? Do I take this opportunity to be part of this startup company?
Yeah.
And you're like, everything feels right. It's like it's niche-y.
Yep.
We're going to get in.
Yep.
And then the leader makes one bad decision, or you find out, like in the last, 3-4 months, AI has taken over writing.
Everything.
And you're like, we were cornering the market, and now they can do it faster, better, and now we have nothing. And there's so much risk in life, and we're a culture that we don't want to take risk, especially as you have children. Payments. You start counting the cost. You're like, do I want to be known by my family as a failure? My wife or husband? My children? We're lucky enough, our kids, they just think we're heroes. Like, you come home, you know how to pick me up. Vinny has teenagers. They talk back. They're like, Dad, I don't like West Virginia. I haven't seen the sun in 9 days.
It's been a while.
Or it's not fair because I was adopted. It was not fair. Like, you even see some kids tell their parents, like, do you know what Johnny did to do? Like, they'll compare their lives to somebody else's. And
100%.
What really dropped in my spirit was trust.
Yeah. That's good.
And we've all said the word, like, I'm going to trust in the Lord with all my heart, all my soul. But why do you trust in the Lord? And that's what I was really wondering about that individual was, what is he going to go home to?
100%.
Does he have a relationship? Does he grab a bottle? Does he have to grab pills to numb himself? But in everything that we do, you've taken big risk through your basically ministry career that turned into a full-blown career. And there had to have been risk. Not everything probably turned out the way you'd like it.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, is like the stages of risk increase, right? Because when it's just you and the wife, like, it's, okay, we can pick up and move. This is easy. When it's now kids, now you add, financial stability that you have, and you're going to walk away from it. Like, there's so much that goes into it, because like when we moved here, it was one of those things where like, and this kind of come full circle here lately, but like when we moved here, it was one of those things where, okay, we had to choose where it was okay that we made a mistake.
Right.
In the sense of we had to say, okay, if this turns out to be the wrong choice, we have to be okay with it.
Right.
And I think that was hard to reconcile, because it wasn't even, we weren't making a mistake or anything like that, but we were saying, if this turns out to be the wrong decision, it has to be okay. Like, we have to be able to live with it. Like, maybe it's going to be ridicule for family. Maybe it's going to be ridicule from friends. But, you hope in those moments that family and friends lift you up. But as we see and we know, we've all been through it, like, that's sometimes not the case.
Right.
And so what's kind of cool too is like, my mother-in-law has been here helping us with, we just had our new son, Finley. And our mother-in-law has been here. And, and one thing she mentioned to my wife is that, that we made the right decision, that we did, that she's now seeing and being able to observe kind of what we've done here, and that, hey, we made the right move for our family.
Right.
And hearing that's a huge like boost to us, because it's like, yeah, like we felt that way, but the fact that other people are seeing that, and people that are close to us though, because the people that are close to you, when they start to say that, that's when you're like, okay, like this was the right decision.
Right.
Because other people can say, oh, you're thriving here, oh, you this, and you're like,
it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't look that way.
Yeah, especially when the people you're closest
right.
to, they may be thinking it, but they haven't observed it yet.
Right.
And so it's kind of come full circle for us, because, we had a kid here now, and, we'd gone through obviously pregnancy struggles on both kids. Both kids are rainbow babies. And so seeing the faithfulness of God through that situation, but then seeing the faithfulness of God on top of the decision we made to move here. So that's a crazy, journey in and of itself.
Right.
But then on top of that journey, we had the journey of moving here, starting a whole new life, like literally a whole new life. And God was faithful, but what we had to do is, and this is the thing, the fear of failure, and y'all have talked about it on the podcast before, but the fear of failure is sometimes more powerful than failure.
Correct.
Because sometimes the fear of failure makes me fail.
Yeah.
Sometimes the fear of failure
staring
puts me
at
up
that target.
Yeah.
You start making little,
yeah.
How would I use it? Like, the judgment of making a decision becomes very minor.
That's good.
And so when you're in a big setting, you have people you need to be responsible for, or items, you make a minor decision,
Yes.
and they needed a major decision, and they're like, dude, what's your problem? Or, if it's a female, they're like, how come you didn't deliver?
Yeah.
You said you could do this.
Yep.
And you're so afraid of making the mistake, but you made it because you didn't invest all of
That's good.
of you, or you gave everything of your ability because you were afraid someone might steal an idea.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of people just keep getting more inclusive,
Yeah.
and their island gets smaller.
Yeah.
And then what's sad is they get into their 30s or 40s, and they're making minor decisions, and it's too risky.
Yeah.
And I'm running out of time. And you went back to your in-laws said, we can see this was the right decision.
Right.
So about, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, I'm driving into work, and I just feel these emotions. I burst into tears, and I just was telling the Lord, I go, I'm so thankful that if I would have known this is the journey, I would have been full in, even harder, stronger. But we always want the guaranteed stamp.
100%.
Like, when you do this, I'm rubber stamping you. Yes. Don't worry. You're not going to be in a fight with your wife or husband. Your kids are going to do this. The job's going to give you 4 new bonuses. You're never going to see the struggle. But that's not how life is. Like, we really think that because we're Christians, God's going to like take us on this little blanket, and everything gets so sweet. And we ride this roller coaster, and I've spent so much time in the last couple of months in Psalms, and you see the emotional roller coaster of David. And he sounds like a basket case. 100%. He's like, God, where are you? Yeah. I need you today. My enemies are about to kill me. Yeah. And that's where I think when we're in desperateness, we put all of our hope in God. But as soon as we taste success, we put it on our own shoulders, and we forget to consult 100%. Holy Spirit. What should I be doing? Do I invest in the market today? Some people are like, don't buy a house. This is the wrong time. Others are like, it's a 30-year decision. What does it matter?
Right.
If you need a house, buy a house.
Yeah.
Don't wait on, right times. There's never a right time. And my whole thing in this is that, what are you trusting in God for? Just to get you out of jail?
Right.
or do you really trust that he has your best interest?
Well, it's the manna. Like, are you just going to take the daily manna? And that's fine. Like, you can eat the daily manna, but God has so much more for you on the other side. God has a promised land for you.
Right.
And the other side too is like, if there's not a full reliance on God 24/7, then there's going to be lack. There's going to be, and it's not just lacking. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about lack of peace, a lack of hope, a lack of anything.
Right.
Because and this is what we said, I think on the last podcast, is when there's a lack of, and we were talking about relationships, right? If there's a lack of information, then there's going to be disinformation. It's going to fill a void. If you have a lack of something, it's going to fill a void of something. Mm-hmm. So something's going to come in and fill that lack and that void, and it's going to be hopelessness. It's going to be depression. And so if you're not filling it, something's going to fill it.
Right.
And I think that's the thing we're trying to say is like, in when you make mistakes, because I think the other side of the conversation that we talk about too is like, how do you recover from mistakes? But in all of that is you have to be okay to make mistakes,
right?
And big mistakes, like and because that's the thing is like what you're saying, and it kind of reminds me of like when you don't make decisions, right? At least in action. And sometimes inaction is okay. Sometimes inaction is good because you need to not be active. And we have the temperament of like, okay, hey, let's do. And sometimes you just the BBB.
Right.
And I think the problem too, though, is if you be inactive for too long, then when you have to be active, you're not ready. No. And not only you're not ready, it's like this is the crazy thing. There's decisions that come, and I know for you too, at my feet all the time that I have to make. And if I had, when I was younger, just been like inactive and just pushed the decisions off, I wouldn't know how to make decisions now.
Right.
Because now I'm older. Now I'm dealing with bigger decisions, just more. And had I in my youth been like, oh, let me push it off, right? Like when I was younger, and to be like, oh no, I don't need to engage in that right now. Right. Then I would have never learned how to make decisions. Right. Because I thankfully had a dad that and a mom that I watched make really tough decisions, and I watched them make it. So it set the stage for me, and I had a good example. But if you don't have a good example, you have to set yourself as the example.
Well, any creative and any entrepreneur, they kind of go hand in hand. Yeah. You have to be comfortable with the decision. 100%. And I think that's a great place to land is we don't know the end result. Right. Like when you guys sketched out an idea, when you're like, put a third wall up. This is probably not exactly what you envisioned, but you knew we needed something to end cap it. Right. And you started making more decisions. And I think we're in a world now that we live in. Our phone is like, can you answer it for me? Yeah. We're listening to so many perspectives, like even us tell you what to do. Yeah. But the one thing that we can tell you is we've lived it. Yeah. We've bled it. We're in it. Yep. And you have to make a decision. And the Lord really showed me for 23 is everybody in your family, everybody in your circle has to be okay with the decision they make. It's good. Because at the end of the day, you have to be okay with your yes and your no. 100%. And if it's wrong, that's really good. We got to make a change with it, but be okay. I attempted. Yeah. So, that gentleman attempted. He did everything right on paper. He pursued the ball. Right. He wanted to push him out of bounds. Yeah. He was 1 foot on the wrong side and gets a penalty. Yeah. How many times in life have we been too far and we got our hand slapped? Or, I always said, I'd rather get my hand slapped by my ministry leadership than to just sit around and tell the stories of, it'd be really nice if we just fed the poor. Yeah. How many times have you paid for somebody at McDonald's or at a fast food place, or at the grocery store said, I want to give you $20. Yeah. But we're so quick to make the conversations, they're just not doing it right. Yeah. Well, there's no investment. Yeah. I think the people that are trying always end up on the side of success because they're moving towards that target. Yeah. If you comment in fear, you will always find something wrong and you'll just live really good. Not living. You'll just always be like, well, the weather's not right. We have the wrong administration. Did you know gas is a lot? Do you know how much eggs are? You're like, my goodness, should I live? I know. Like, is this? It's
so funny too because we just came from COVID, and to think like all of this too was birthed out of COVID ultimately, right? And it's like when you were supposed to be inactive, you weren't. Right. And so I think that goes to show, like, and you look at the church as a whole, when the church was supposed to be inactive, what did it do? It grew. Right. So like when you start looking at like by standards of the world, by standards of government, we were supposed to be inactive. Mm-hmm. We weren't. So to even look at that and say, that's our benchmark. Like inactivity may be expected of you, but don't be inactive.
Right.
Like, and the thing is we're not, and this is the other side of it too, is like you look at it, and I would say maybe from a perspective, homie was, overzealous, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. He was overzealous because he knew if I stop this guy, I got another quarterback on the other side that can get me to the Super Bowl.
Right.
So in his head, he knows if I make this play, I might send us to the Super Bowl.
Right.
And so and that is the crowning achievement of, I mean, there's dudes that have only been once and they didn't win it.
Right.
And so you look at, and some of them never even been in the playoffs. And so you look at that achievement and you look at that, maybe that zealousness, that passionate, but here's the thing, it doesn't mean that you stop being zealous and passionate.
Well, to kind of, you and I probably could run this thing.
Yeah.
There's 28 other teams that didn't get the opportunity to play this last weekend to be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
We put so much in on the failure and success and don't realize there was an elite amount of people.
100%.
So if there's 4 teams on that defense, there's only 44 people getting to play on that side to attempt.
Right.
And we have to realize I'd rather attempt and be in the process to win than be the guy on the sideline or gal on the sideline being like, well, I'm going to wait till we get through COVID to decide what I'm going to do.
Right.
I don't want to buy a house. I am not moving. I don't know what's going to happen. And when we become inactive, we become critical. And I would commend that individual and say, you tried.
Yeah.
You knew the guy you were up against.
Yeah.
He was an elite running quarterback, not just throwing.
Yeah.
He could have got the 15 yards without the penalty.
Yeah.
You did everything right on paper.
Yeah.
And you attempted to do what you should have done.
Yeah.
It just was a moment
100%.
1 second too late.
And the way I look at it too is like, to kind of show how we've applied this is, if you go back and look at what, and me and Vinny had talked about it about 3 episodes ago, but where this studio was in the podcast realm, what we were doing,
right?
How many things did we fix and change and cut and clip and things that other people would look at as failures, we just looked at as stepping stones,
right?
Because that's the other thing, is we were talking in the very beginning about the perspective. You can see something as a failure, or you can see something as a stepping stone.
Correct.
And so what we did around here is, and you can see it now, we clipped and we prodded and we did things to all the different shows.
Right.
And now we're at, and are we going to stay here? We'll probably keep elevating.
Right.
But we're at a point where we know where it's okay that if we can admit, like, hey, that wasn't the best, what can we do to make it better?
Right.
And I think that's kind of like the practical application, what we've done just in this studio. Obviously, we've done it in our lives and things like that. We're saying just even this, like on this side of the camera.
In layman terms, we took the responsibility of making the adjustment. We didn't put it back on the listener.
100%.
Oh, when we get more followers,
Yeah.
when YouTube decides to pay us,
Yeah.
we'll do this.
Yeah.
No, we were like, let's make every set have a unique.
Yeah.
We can be responsible for that.
Yeah.
Not even content wise.
Right.
Let's do what we can do.
Yeah.
Let's not say, oh, we need a bigger building.
100%.
And I think, to really look at is what can we do as individuals with what God's given us, but trust that every decision we make, even when it's not right, the Bible says he'll make our crooked path straight again.
Yep.
So I really want to encourage you, don't stop living, even in the mistakes, even if it's a bad relationship, if it's a bad investment, if it's a bad, job opportunity, whatever it's been, there's a new one on the horizon. But you'll never know until you get your foot wet, and you have to be willing to risk. The best advice I got from a mentor was risk little, receive little. Risk much, receive much. And it goes in so many veins, surely financial.
Oh my goodness.
If I'm willing to risk a penny, the best I can get is 2 pennies out of that deal if I double it.
Yep.
You can't make $1 million by investing pennies.
Right.
You can't be loved if you don't want to be friends to anybody. You can't get involved if you're not willing to talk. So I would just really encourage you, risk, take some tries. You're not going to be good at everything.
That's good.
They still don't let me do everything around here. They don't like me involved in everything, but I don't pull I'm the boss card because I have to recognize I'm not good at that.
Yep.
I may try, but I get, okay, let's make some adjustments. But I want to encourage you, take some risks. It's not your normal character because you'll never know what you have in you till you step out.
That's good. It's really good.
This has been fun.
It's been a good one. So, all right. Well, we'll see you next week.
Yes, we'll see you for the next show.